Hey, welcome back. Hey, I know I've said this repeatedly, but I'm going to say it again here. Most people just live their lives on autopilot. Their days are just filled with the same noise, distractions, and monotony that every other day is filled with. And each day they wake up and just do the same thing over and over again, just like Groundhog Day. Every day is the same. It's just filled with unfulfilling busyness, just constant movement or constant distraction with no real intention behind it. But by living this way, people tend to lose touch with the one thing that truly matters. It's that still small voice in your head that guides, um, directs, and corrects. And this brings us to key number 8, living in conscience congruency. So let me tell you what I mean by conscience congruency. You know that still small voice in your head, obviously. Okay, so that's been described in a whole bunch of deep philosophical ways, like the authentic voice of God or the voice of the universe or your inner wisdom, your higher self, or, you know, in boring terms, just your conscience, your intuition, or your gut instinct. Me, I prefer to live as though that's the voice of the one that created me. So for me, that's the authentic voice of God. And if it's the voice of the one created me, chances are, if I believe that I'm designed for a purpose, and I'm designed for something magnificent, then I should probably become very sensitive to that voice, start listening to that voice, and being obedient to that voice if I believe that I'm here for a purpose, and if I believe that that voice is the authentic voice of God. And for me, living in conscience congruency means being obedient to that voice because I feel like that voice is always trying to guide us and direct us to make us better, help us to do the right things and stay away from doing the wrong things. What I've learned though is the thing that that voice tells me to do or stop doing is most oftentimes pretty difficult. Like it's either a fear that it's telling me to overcome or it's a step that it's telling me to take that I'm not ready to take. That's probably true for everybody. But the beautiful thing is being obedient to that voice, it forces us to face our fears. And when we face our fears, we overcome them and we get to grow to the next level in life. If we believe, like me personally, I believe that I'm always protected, I'm always being taken care of. Life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me, and everything's going to be okay. It's always been okay thus far in my life, and I can only assume that it's always going to be okay moving forward, regardless of what happens, regardless of the seasons, regardless if it's a great season or a valley season. There's something to learn in both of those. And regardless, I'm always going to be okay. And again, the amazing part is whenever you do the thing that you're scared to do, the benefit of having done it always outweighs the fear that you had going into it. And this was, for me, this was especially true way back in the day when I was in the throes of an addiction before I pretty much silenced that voice because it kept telling me, Jonathan, stop taking pills, stop taking pills, stop doing drugs. But I couldn't. I was in the middle of an addiction. It was very difficult. I had a very weak mind, and it was difficult for me to overcome that and get through that. And so I was repeatedly disobedient to that voice. And eventually that voice got super quiet. Maybe it even went away. And that sucked because what took its place after that was just seasons of depression, of self loathing, and just a numbness that felt even worse than the pain that I was trying to escape with the drugs. And that sucked because it was just replaced by like a crushing silence and the weight of knowing that I ignored my way out of hope. But the beautiful thing is, it didn't disappear forever. It was just waiting on me to take the necessary steps, the being obedient, the doing what I felt in my heart to do. And then it started, I started hearing it again. It's my opinion that we've all been gifted this beautiful guidance system, but many people hear the guidance and either dismiss it or outright disobey it. And when you do that, in my opinion, the outcome is the same. You just get disconnected from it. And that is a scary place to be because if we believe that that's the authentic voice of God or the universe or whatever has created us for it to then not talk to us. But the beautiful thing is that whenever you listen to that voice and you honor that voice, you get into integrity with yourself and your creator, essentially, and you live in harmony with who or what created you. And that's a beautiful place to be. What people don't realize is whenever you start listening to that voice and being obedient to it, slowly your world will open up. Things will become lighter and things will become easier. You'll have answers to questions that you haven't even asked, that you don't even know that you need answers to yet, but you'll already have them when the moment comes. And it's all from listening to that voice and being obedient to that voice for a long enough time period where you can be trusted with the information that's pouring into you. Like the information that's pouring into you to do this, don't do that. There's a reason for that. We get these little flags that pop up in our brain where we feel guilt or shame or apathy or depression, and that's not how we're supposed to feel. We're not supposed to go through life feeling like that. Those are signal markers that says, hey, something's wrong here, we need to fix it. But the problem is people get so busy in their lives that they don't stop and just sit to be able to really hear and be able to download from our internal guidance system. And because we're always so busy, we wake up and then it's immediate rush through the morning routine to get out the door, to go to work, to get back home, to cook dinner, to get on the TV, to slowly move into our nighttime routine, and never once taking time to just sit and be still and not think about anything, not stress about anything, not ruminate about anything, just sitting still. We don't take the time to do that. This society is such a society of busyness, and we could all benefit from just slowing down. But here's the thing, like that voice is your compass. That voice is going to guide you to become better than you are now. It's going to guide you to become the best version of yourself. But if you're constantly moving, constantly scrolling, constantly filling your head up with distractions, you're never going to hear from it. But listening to it, listening to that still small voice in your head, it requires two things. Number one, as I said, it requires you to slow down. You can't hear a whisper in a storm. Sometimes you just need to pause and sit in silence and just let the thoughts just kind of fade away. Don't obsess over them. Don't ruminate over them. Just sit in silence. No distractions, no phone, no TV, no radio, nothing. Just you and silence, because that's when clarity comes. But it's going to take practice for a lot of people. People aren't used to just sitting doing nothing. They're used to stressing or being distracted or numbing or, scrolling, smoking, drinking, TVing, whatever. We have this laundry list of things that we do to just distract ourselves. And if you believe in good and evil, or you believe in a higher power and something that's trying to keep you from becoming the best version of yourself, you can look at those distractions as trying to prevent you from becoming all that you could be, from realizing all of your potential. The second requirement for you to listen to that inner voice is to trust it and obey it. It's one thing to hear your intuition or hear what your conscience is telling you to do, but it's a completely different thing to actually obey it. And as I already said, most of the time it's going to push you to do something that's very uncomfortable, something like a tough decision, an overdue conversation, or just a leap of faith when you're scared to take the leap. But living in congruency means being brave enough to actually listen and then take the action. So how do you start living in conscious congruency? Number one, we kind of just went over it. Create time for stillness. Every day, just carve out a few minutes to just sit in silence. No phones, no distractions, just you sitting in silence and breathing, and get good breathing, 4 in, hold 4, 4 out. Because what that's going to do, and it's going to calm your nervous system down. So you can stop thinking, stressing, worrying, whatever. You can just sit and relax for 5-10 minutes. And the secret is to just focus on space and not the objects around you. Just focus on nothing, just darkness, just black, and just breathe deep. Don't think about the objects. focus on the space around you. Now, it may be tough at first, but you'll come to learn that this is going to be a pretty integral part of hearing more clearly from your conscience, from the voice of God, from the universe, whatever name you want to put on it. Number two is ask and reflect. So during your quiet moments, just ask, what do I truly want? Or what's the next right step for me? And just sit there in silence and shut up. The answer might not come right then, but it will come at some point. You'll get different opportunities that'll show up, or you'll get different ideas of what to do. Somebody might pop in your head that you need to call. It's all kind of beautiful synchronicities that'll start happening once you learn to just sit down, shut up, and focus on nothing except being still and quieting your mind and quieting the outer world. Amazing things start to happen. Very synchronistic things. Number three, to practice conscious congruency, practice small acts of alignment. Start with small steps. If your inner voice is telling you to rest, go take a nap. If it tells you to call a friend, pick up the phone and call the friend. Because each time that you listen and act, you're strengthening that connection. And the more difficult things that you do, the more amazing things start showing up in your life, or the more amazing opportunities start showing up in your life. It just feels like a natural reward for living in alignment. It's kind of like, as a parent, you feel proud whenever your kid listens to you and does what you say. It inspires you to want to do good for them in return. Number four, on how to practice conscious congruency, is let go of the noise. Be mindful of what you are consuming. As too much news, social media, or other people's opinion, it's going to drown out your intuition. You got to protect that mental space. There's really not much else to it. That pretty much sums up conscious congruency, what it is, how to do it, how to live with it. That's pretty much it. It's pretty simple, but it's a matter of doing it. It's simple, but it's not easy, because it's very difficult to do things that you're scared to do. It's very difficult to do things that you don't feel like doing. So we all have that inner voice that guides us. Start listening to it, start being obedient to it, and watch how your life changes. Maybe not immediately, but definitely. Oh, and one more thing before I go, I want to touch on this too. More than likely, you do things or you have some habits that after indulging in them, you feel shame or guilt. I kind of covered this in the last video about habits and beliefs, but I'm going to go over it a little bit more in depth here because it falls in line with being obedient to that voice and how you're not supposed to live in guilt or shame or apathy. You're supposed to live in a state of joy and wholeness and freedom. And we can all get there, but you're going to have to do some work. And some of that work I'm about to talk about right here. So if you have habits like that, or things that you do that make you feel shameful or guilty or whatever after you do them, it's imperative that you remove those from your life immediately. Those are holding you back more than you could ever understand. You can't see it right now, but it is massively detrimental to you as a person. Or maybe you have things that you've gone so far, you don't even feel guilty or shameful about anymore, even if you used to. And if that's the case, let me ask you a question. In whatever you're doing, if your wife or your spouse or your parent or anyone that you respect saw you doing that thing, would that be okay with them? Or like, could you give your spouse your phone for a week without freaking out about it or without being nervous at all? I bet a lot of you watching this wouldn't be able to do that. But why not? What are you ashamed of? Or what are you hiding? Because whatever it is, it's absolute poison. It's eroding your integrity. It's eroding your confidence. It's eroding your relationships. And you might not be able to see it now, but it's definitely putting cracks in your relationships. You can't live a fulfilled, purpose-driven life when you feel the need to hide things from the people that you love and care for most. And the sooner you let go of those things, the lighter you're going to feel, the more free that you're going to feel, and the more aligned you're going to become with the person that you're meant to be. So you need to be conscious of that. We need to be conscious of our own behaviors. If we wouldn't like someone doing it to us, then don't do it to someone else. We all have these little desires that we fall victim to, especially when you're prioritizing pleasure over your purpose. And the moment that you choose that fleeting satisfaction over that still small voice that guides you, you begin to drift further away from what actually fills you up. And pleasure may feel good in the moment, but it very rarely leads to long term satisfaction and fulfillment. Purpose, on the other hand, actually pulls you towards alignment, pulls you towards who you're supposed to be, pulls you towards becoming the best version of yourself and the ideal vision for your life. And when you begin choosing purpose over pleasure, you create space for more meaningful relationships and joy in your life, as opposed to all the negativity, the shame, and the guilt that you've been feeling. And this goes right back to what we were just talking about. That guilt and that shame and that apathy that you're feeling is a signal to you that you need to get rid of this in your life. It's your conscience telling you, hey, this isn't right. It's the flashing red light. Hey, this isn't right. We shouldn't do this. So start looking at it like that. Whenever you feel guilty about something or shameful about something or you're hiding something, you don't feel good internally. So use that as the message from God, from the creator of the universe, whatever you want to call it. That's the message speaking to you to change, to discontinue doing what you're doing, because it's a shitty feeling. It's a low vibrational frequency, guilt and shame, and it serves no purpose. And you don't have to live like that. But if you keep on ignoring it, it's going to become part of who you are. And so then you're just going to become accepting of the shit that you used to detest because you've just been doing it for so long. You've just been ignoring the signs of the shame and the guilt. And now it's just a part of who you are. What do you think that does to you as a person? You need to remember that you used to detest that shit for a reason. But the more that you do what you know that you shouldn't do, that still small voice is going to get quieter and quieter. And it is a very uncomfortable place to be. But when you're actually ready to change and become the best version of yourself again, that voice is going to be there, but you're going to have to do some work. So here's my challenge for you this week. Just take 5 minutes out of your day and just sit with your phone off and out of the way. No TV, no distractions. Just sit. Close your eyes and breathe. No agenda, no expectations. Just sit. And another thing, when that still small voice speaks to you in the coming days and weeks, listen to it. Be obedient to it. Do what it tells you to do. See where it leads you. But don't go into this with the expectation of hearing anything. Just do it knowing that it's going to change your life, knowing that it's for you, it's best. You just need to calm down. Just get rid of the distractions for a few minutes a day. Just be with yourself. Just go in with the intention of quieting your mind, because quieting your mind is like opening the door. And when God or the universe or whatever is ready to come and speak to you, the door is already wide open. All you have to do is listen at this point. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some value out of it. If you did, do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share that joint with somebody that might need to hear it. I'm sure you know somebody that needs to hear it. And going back to sharing it, maybe that's your first test. If you feel in your heart you need to send it to a certain person, maybe that's your first test to be obedient to that voice of God or the universe talking to you. Maybe somebody needs to hear the message. And it's not even just this one. Maybe you watch something down the road that resonates with you and you think about somebody else. Send it to them. If you watch any video, anywhere, hear any song, anywhere, and somebody is put on your heart, like, hey, that person might like that, send it to them. That's the authentic voice of God telling you they need to hear it. And so often you send it to them at the right time because you are a conduit for them to get some information. And because you were obedient, they don't have to suffer. They get the benefit of your obedience. And then beautiful things just naturally come back to you. That's the law of reciprocity. One final thought. Living in conscious congruency, it's not about being perfect, but it's about being present with yourself. It's about honoring that quiet wisdom and aligning your life with it. Slow down, listen, and trust yourself. You have everything that you need. Thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video where we talk about discipline and consistency.